Alright, so you've seen the name of the video, and you're probably wondering, Scotty, isn't this cheating? And that I say, shut up, my channel, my review series, and I gotta get this out of the way. So with the new Scream movie coming this weekend, which of course I'm not gonna be able to watch this weekend because it's only movie theaters, I don't have a movie theater. But with it coming this weekend, I wanted to do a revisited review of it. And so we have Scream, which I've chosen for my S. And this was a last minute choice because I had other movies like I had Short Circuit in there, I had Stuber, I don't know, all sorts of movies that I put in there that switch. But I figured it'd be easy for me to just go ahead and talk about this. I watched this for the first time with my son this past weekend. And it was something I wanted to do, and it makes sense because he's 10 years old now, and I first watched the movie when I was 10 years old, so I felt it was appropriate to, sit with him. And we're going to watch Scream 2 eventually, too. It's going to be on the Sci-Fi channel. I have it set to record, so eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to sit down and watch it. But Scream has a place in my heart. It was one of the horror films that really got me into horror. I said this before. Child's Play when I was 7, this when I was 10, then when I was a teenager it was Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy vs. Jason. But really Freddy vs. Jason that really got me into wanting to watch more horror. It was because of Freddy vs. Jason and the first Nightmare on Elm Street that I sought out the collection and watched all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And then from then on I've been searching that horror, and I'm still doing it. Like I just now bought all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, all the Psycho movies, the Hannibal films. I'm trying to get into more horror, and this goes back to Scream and those kind of movies. So, yes. And like I said, I watched this for the first time on the little cable box thing you could get when this first came out back then, where you could get the higher channels, and it was on Stars. So we watched it, and it's been one of my favorite horror movies ever since. Probably number 2 next to Child's Play. Well, Child's Play, Freddy vs. Jason, and this are in that top 3. It can be interchanged at any point in time. But yeah, and when this came out, horror was at a point where, especially slashers, where it was kind of just in the humdrum level where they were building out slashers all over the place in the 80s and then even in the early 90s to the point that it was getting overdone. Along comes Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, who put this together and just totally changed the landscape when it comes to horror and slasher. And then this references a lot of horror movies. It calls back to it. As a horror film fan, it really, especially now that I've seen most of the horror movies they reference, like Prom Night, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, I can really appreciate all this. And to the point of why I love this, I love the characters, I love the story, I love the setting, I even love some of the kills. Most of them are just basic stabs. There are some other, like the garage door, and even to an extent, Billy just getting shot in the head, as simple as a gunshot to the head. Could be an effective kill. And the dialogue in this film, I think, is really good. It's Kevin Williamson. He's good at writing this kind of dialogue, and it works. And it goes without saying that I'm probably not going to have any negatives in this film. Little nitpicks, but nothing negative is going to ruin my experience. So let's start going through the movie as I often do. And we're going to start with the beginning, with the iconic opening scene with Drew Barrymore making some Jiffy Pop on the stove. And when I was watching this with my son, he kept saying, "Isn't she going to take that off the stove? It's going to burn." And then I told you, it's going to burn. There's smoke coming. Take it off the stove. There is a part where she goes to take it off, and I'm actually going, when we're going through these kill scenes, I'm going to analyze and try to figure out who the killer is here. I've heard a lot of things. It's just Billy. It's both of them. Now, you need to take what is said later on in the film into account as well. So we know that Billy is out because he shows up at Sydney's house shortly after this. So obviously he was there, but was Stu there? Stu has an alibi from Tatum, who says she was with him. But as pointed out by other reviewers, there's no specific time given. So he could have been there and gone there after, or gone there. He could have been at Casey's house and then went to Tatum's afterwards, or been at Tatum's and decided to leave and went there. All signs point to there being more than one killer in this, because it seems very plausible that there's one on the phone and the other actually doing the killing. And as we get this scene, and you have to remember the most important part of this is after, the struggle and all that and running through, and there is great tension built with this, where she is on the phone and you think it's normal, and then when shit gets real, you hang up the phone, I'll slit you like a throat, or whatever he says. I'll gut you like a fish. That really, and it's Roger L. Jackson's voice, Jojo himself, that really sells the performance, and makes it work. And so yes, I'm going into this with you knowing who the killers are, okay? So I think both Billy and Stu are here. I think it's Billy on the phone, and I think it's Stu doing the killing. And let me tell you why. The most important moment, after the parents come home and he's got her there, he's about to do his final kill. She takes off his mask. We don't see the face, but the look on her face signifies that someone that she knows, that she's had some sort of relationship with, someone that she knows very, very well. And that, as we find out later, is Stu, because they used to date until she dumped him for Steve. So that tells me that Stu did the killing, but Billy was also there. I'm assuming he helped him put her up on the tree, or just did the phone call. They were both there at some point. But yeah, great opening scene. This is going to be full of spoilers. I've already did my regular review. We want to go and watch that. There's spoilers in that too, but I feel like in this one I can really talk about the spoilers more than just, that's what Revisited is for, just to go all out, And then from here we get the scene where Sydney's in her bedroom. Billy shows up in the window. And let me tell you something. I didn't realize before until watching this with my son. There is a very slow cover of Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult. It's a cover by who knows. And I'm sitting there, we're watching it, sitting there, I'm going, they're playing a slow version of Don't Fear the Reaper. And I actually listened to this on YouTube. And I love the song. But the slow version doesn't work. Because, the whole thing about the song is... You have a slow version. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work to slow down this song. But it's in the background. You can barely notice. I barely noticed it before until now. And we get the dialogue about the relationship of we were rated R on our way to NC-17. She's like, you want to settle for a PG-13 relationship? And even though we don't see it, he still gets to see something, right? Or is her bra under there? I don't know. But he falls out the window, and then, we get the dialogue before this that during this, that her dad is going out of town. And that's how Billy gets the information. And I think it's here. Because my son and I were talking about this. I think it's here. Like after he says he's leaving. As he goes to leave. Because I think he leaves here, right? And after he has a conversation with her, I think he leaves, right? And I think Billy cuts him off. Or Stu is out there too, and they cut him off. And then... Because he's not there the next day. So I'm thinking he left that night. And they cut him off. And they hide the car somewhere off the road by Stu's house. Which is... kind of giving it away, but and then we get the whole news, media. We get a Linda Blair cameo. We get, my favorite cameraman and yours, Kenny, and Gail Weathers there. And we introduce the Principal Fonzarelli and the police chief and Deputy Dewey Boy as she gets interviewed, and we get information about, something happened a year ago, and it was her mother was murdered, supposedly by Cotton Weary, and it's interesting when you look at Cotton Weary. He looks very familiar. He looks like another character we know. If you saw him from behind, you kind of think they were each other. Yeah, he looks like Billy from behind, and that's the whole thing. Is that we find out, because we do find out later that it was Billy and Stu that killed her mom, and she saw whoever it was from behind leaving wearing Cotton's jacket. And obviously, from behind, Billy and Cotton look very much the same with the slick back hair. So it's very easy for her to pin it on Cotton, for them to pin it on Cotton, for her to say it was Cotton. So, and so because of all this, there is this, everyone's running around with the costume and everything, and maybe that's the next scene. But here, everything is basically normal. They're sitting outside of that fountain, which I never had a fountain like that at my school, but I always wanted to sit there with my friends, even though I only had like a couple friends. But, still would have been fun. And they're talking. And you get the dialogue here. And when you listen to the dialogue, here's some things. Like when Stu said, "I didn't kill anyone." And then the way Billy looks at him and says, "Nobody said you did." Like, shut up, you idiot. And then you get the joke, "Did you put her liver in the mailbox? Because I heard you put your liver in the mailbox. That's where it's being in her pancreas. Liver alone. Liver alone." It's called tact, you fuck rag. Just the dialogue here. Let you know you're in a meta universe. They're going to talk about horror movies and everything. How do you gut someone? And it's Stu. That's another point out to the first kill, is that Stu is the one who tells her how you gut someone. How do you know unless he's the one who did it, right? Just saying. And, and it was this scene that my son pointed out and went, "That's Shaggy." I'm like, yep, that's him. And let me tell you something. My son, 30 to 40 minutes into this film, figured out who both killers were. Unknowingly. Okay, so we'll go here and we'll get to the scene after they go home. And, Billy, Sydney falls asleep, and then when she wakes up, she gets the phone call, and she makes a comment, horror movies are all the same. It's some big-breasted bimbo who goes up the stairs instead of going out the front door. It's ridiculous. Only for her to, go out the front door. There's a lot of things that if she actually stopped to think when she was doing these things, she probably get out of it. If she stopped to breathe for a second, unlock the door, and run out, she would have gotten away. But no, she was too much in the moment and ran back upstairs and called the police on her computer, which is a thing. And then Billy pops through the window, and she automatically thinks it's him. And then I understand him being there and having a cell phone, which nowadays would be no big deal. In 96, it kind of was. So, yeah. Yeah, so he got red-handed, and my son and I both laugh when she opens the door and Dewey's there. Ah! It's funny. It's funny. I love Dewey. I love Dewey so much. He's one of my favorite characters. I'm glad they keep bringing him back. He was originally supposed to die in this film, but the audience didn't like that, so they brought him back. Shot a scene where they show him being carted into a ambulance at the end. That was good because I love Dewey. And I hope, like, people keep saying, "Oh, Dewey's the killer because he looks so down on his luck and he's the one who's doing this." No, I hope not. It wouldn't make any sense for him to all of a sudden be a killer after 30 years, 20 some odd years. No. Doesn't make any sense. People saying that he might die, though, and I could see that. We need to kill off at least one of the original characters, and I don't think they're going to do that with Sydney, even though she is a viable choice. Dewey seems more, and there is more shots of Gail and Sydney together in the trailer than Dewey is, so I have a feeling. But anyway, back to this movie. So we get to the police station, and Tatum shows up, takes her out. We get the scene at the back door where Gail shows up. I'll send you a copy. Bam! Bitch went down. I'll send you a copy. Bam! Sit. Super bitch. And then we get to Tatum's room. And let me talk about this for a minute. How old is she supposed to be, right? 17, 18? She's wearing pajamas, first of all. She's got a stuffed animal and 2 twin beds. What 17, 18-year-old has a room like that? Also, Dewey is 25 years old, as we find out later in the film. Or at some point in the film. He's still living with his mom. Now, don't get me wrong. I lived with my mom till I was 21. But that's 21. But 25, I was here. Living on my own. So, I don't know. Dewey does seem like the character to do it. I'm assuming by Scream 2, he is on his own. I would assume, but Then we get the phone call. So, it can't be him. And I will point out, when Billy showed up, my son's like, it's him. It's got to be him. He's there. He has the phone. It's him. I'm like, oh, really? Are you sure? Then when the phone call's made, well, it can't be him. He's in jail. And I said, well, she does point out later that he could have used his one phone call to do it, but I think they have people, at least nowadays they do, they're watching him when he makes the one phone call, so I don't think that would work. He's like, oh, okay. Well, then it's Shaggy. And I'm just like, what? Now, he pointed out both killers. Wow. So, yes, from here, we go back to school, and Billy is released, we find out. And they have there's a talk at the locker and stuff, and then people running around, oh. And then Billy and Sydney have a talk, and, talk about how her mother died, and my mom left me. Your mom left town. She didn't die. She's not laying in a grave somewhere, and she runs to the bathroom. Then you get Himbry kind of yelling at these kids for dressing up like that. People were murdered, Then we get the bathroom scene, and let me point something out. Everyone always seems to point out that, who is it? Is it Billy? Is it Stu? And why are they doing it? Here's the thing. It's neither of them. Stu was with Tatum all the way down the hallway. Alright? Now, we don't see him leave her, or we don't see where they are, but I don't think he had time to run to the bathroom and hide. Also, how would either of them know where she was? Billy was just in the hallway with her, and she went that direction. He can't be in there. And there's something that I've heard in other reviews, and you got to point it out. I'm going to point it out here. Whenever it's the actual ghost face, there's this glitter sheen, this glitter-like stuff on the suit. When it's not, when it's one of the pranksters, there is no glitter. Now, this person that attacks her in the bathroom here, one is wearing dark blue jeans with black boots, which neither of them are wearing. Billy is wearing lighter blue jeans with black tennis shoes. Stu is wearing khakis with maybe black tennis shoes, but not boots. Alright? So it's neither of them. The guy doesn't have any glitter, and he jumps at her with no knife. It's one of the pranksters. So everybody tries to point out, who could it be? Is it the third killer? Is it Roman? Why would he just be in the bathroom? No, it's just a prankster. And the same can go for the 2 other ghost faces we see later. The one in the grocery store, also a prankster. Also the one hiding in the bushes is also a prankster. No glitter. It makes the most sense. Because it doesn't make sense that Billy and Stu would just be running around with the costumes. Those are pranksters. Meant to throw off the people watching. Wes Craven probably put those in there to throw off. Trying to wonder what they were doing there. Why they out in the open. They're just more pranksters. So, after this, we get, Stu saying there's a party at my house tonight. Total rager, because everyone, school, schedule, because schedule is out. So, he's out. So, yeah, party. And then, people pointed this out. He does a little stabbing motion and then goes back towards the school. But I'm gonna point out that I think it's Billy that kills Henry, and that's because there's not enough time. Stu needs to be at home to get ready for the party, so I think he's going back to get his car. I'm assuming he drives. He and Billy, one of them have to drive. So I'm assuming he's going back to get his car, or he's going to meet Billy so that they can both hang Henry up on the football field post, because there has to be more than one to do it, because not both, one of them is not that strong to do it. So I'm assuming he's going to meet Billy because Billy is going to kill Henry, which he does. But we get that cameo from Wes Craven dressed like Freddy Krueger. Little shits. What did you say to me? Not you, Fred. He kills Principal Fonzie, and it's Billy, of course. And then we cut to the party where... No, we don't go to the party. We go to the video store. And that's another thing. They're both at the video store, which means they had to have arrived at similar points, with Stu coming in first and then Billy. And then, you have Randy pointing out, oh, that's classy, If I was a murderer, a suspect in a murder, would I be standing... If you were a suspect in a murder, would you be standing in the horror section? You get the whole rant. It's a formula. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect. Tell you, the dad's a red herring, it's Billy. And the fact that Stu tries to push that it's the dad also factors into their plan, But I do like, and something I noticed this time, put out to my son, is when they're like, why kill, like, if it's Billy, why kill Sidney? And Randy says, there's always some bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend. And a lady behind him goes, looking around like, anybody else hear that? It's the stuff you notice in the background. I really like that. And then it's when they get kind of closing on that you realize there is something going on here that was like Stu's in on him. My son didn't catch on to it. He didn't say anything here, but So let's get to the party where the last act of the film takes place, right? We have the setup. Everyone's coming in. Sidney and Tatum show up with the food. And then Dewey walks in with Gail, who plants that little camera. And it's here I realized, how would no one see that? Randy has to bend down and put the VHS tape in the VCR. It's right on top of the VCR. You think he'd be like, what's the camera doing here? Huh? It doesn't make any sense. They would notice it. Someone who put, unless, and I've done this before too, you just put the VHS in like that. I've done it. I do it with DVD sometimes too. I just do this. It happens. One time I was paying attention, I put the DVD in upside down. It happens. You don't pay attention sometimes. You take it out, you put it in a thing, that. Maybe that's what happened. But if he was paying attention, he would have noticed. But you have the camera, and it's got a 30-second delay. So there's that. Okay, so the next kill comes when Tatum goes out to the garage, where it's very cold apparently because her nippies are boing, even though she's wearing a bra, which sort of. In the scene where her nips are out, she's not, but when it cuts, she's got a bra strap on the back, and it's like, wait a minute, are her nipples made of steel? What the hell is going on here? Who knows? I mean, get the kill. It's kind of stupid. And, okay, so who's the killer in this scene? Well, usually I would say it was Billy because it makes sense. But I've watched other videos and I actually think it's Stu. Because, one, this dude is clumsy, getting thrown beer that disappears, by the way. 2 beer bottles were thrown at him and he falls on the steps. And then when the camera cuts back, he's just dry, which we both noticed. And he's dry. Yeah. And then after he kills Tatum with the garage door, which everybody keeps saying her tits are what keeps her from going out. No, both her tits are out. No, not like that. Both of her tits are both of her boobies are through the door. It's not those. it's just stupidity. She would be able to squeeze through just fine if she just, again, if a character would stop and think. Put your legs through first. Put your legs through first and squeeze through, and then you'll be able to get through just fine. But no, they're in a hurry, so it goes up, crushes her, and then the killer, or I think it's Stu, slinks back into the party. It would be easy for Stu to just disrobe, hide it somewhere in the closet where Sydney finds it later. Huh? Makes sense, right? Although, he does put it on again later, but I don't know. Maybe he puts that in the same closet later. Who knows? But, yeah. And then we get Billy showing up. And they go up to the room to have the sex, which is one of the rules. Randy explains the rules. Also, they're watching Halloween. And they do it then and they go, ooh, it's too red. And I'm like, no, you're watching Halloween. There's no blood in Halloween. What? There's no blood in Halloween. That's stupid. In a movie that's referencing horror movies, you can't reference the horror movie right. There's no blood in Halloween. It's classy. There's not a lot of blood, at least. Not where they say it is. Also, they're stuck on the finale of Halloween for fucking ever. Like, it lasts for the rest of this movie, and I feel like it should be done by a certain point. I'm just saying. Yes, so they're up doing the bang boom, and then Dewey comes up to Gail and says, got a report of a car found on the side of the road here. I'm going to check it out. And they find it, and it's after getting knocked off the road by some school kids who want to go see, the high school kids who want to go see Himbry's body. By the way, Dewey is the worst cop in the world. He walks into a party and sees all these underage kids drinking and decides to just let them drink. They're not going to do anything. I'm like, why not? You're a cop. It's your job. Shouldn't you be like arresting everyone for underage drinking? I don't understand, even though everyone's in their 20s, but I don't understand. I don't get it. But yes, and after the sex, Billy is killed by Stu. Has to be Stu. And then when Gail and Dewey come back, it's before this actually, where Sydney, I keep forgetting her name. Sydney runs out and finds Kenny. He gets his throat slit, and she hides and climbs through the thing and back into the car. And then hides in the police wagon thing. She finds Dewey stabbed in the back and supposedly dead. She hides in the car, and when she gets out, the killer is gone. Right? So here we get a moment that, if, again, she would think would make her realize. So, we get a moment before this when she goes out. We get Jamie Kennedy being meta, yelling at Jamie Lee Curtis, behind you, Jamie. Behind you, Jamie. As the killer is behind him. So, behind you, Jamie. He's telling himself. I used to have a friend named Jamie. And I did that to him. He just turned around. He's like, there's a wall there. Nothing. There's a wall. Well, behind me what? Never mind. But yeah. So she sees this on the 30-second delay camera thing, right? So at this point, she sees Dewey dead. And then, all of a sudden, Randy and Stu are coming up to her, both claiming that the other is the killer. If she had thought, just for 1 second, if she had just used her brain instead of saying, fuck both of you and shut the door, she would realize who the killer was. Because think about it. On the screen, you have Randy on the couch while the killer is behind him. And she thinks Billy is dead. If she just used her brain, she'd be able to surmise that the killer is Stu. But she doesn't do that. So instead, she runs in the house and shuts the door and locks it. Billy comes rolling down the stairs, and then well, I forgot to mention that Gail gets sidelined in the news van and crashes, and she's left for dead. Now, my big thing is later, Stu says, Billy says, you said she was dead. She looked dead, still does. And I'm like, you weren't even near the crash site, so how would you know? Off screen? Did he go and check on her off screen? I don't know. But yes, so Billy comes tumbling down the steps, lets Randy in, says, we all go a little mad sometimes, shoots him in the shoulder, knocking him unconscious somehow, and then says, Anthony Perkins, psycho, pig's blood. Corsair, the same thing they use for pig's blood at Carrie. You get the line right. So she runs into Stu, and he's like, Stu, help me. He's like, surprise, Sydney. And yes, it's Billy and Stu, of course it is. And so we get their plan, and I love this scene where they go back and forth and doing a thing. It was fun. Oh, you're gonna love this. It's a Scream, baby. I'll be right back. Let's face it, she's no Sharon Stone, right? Yeah, we find out the motive is that Sydney's mom was having sex with Billy's dad, and it was the reason why his mother left, right? And that's motive enough, and he brings in Stu, find out that there's another reason in the third one, but I'll get to that when I revisit the third one, but he, yeah, that's why, and Gail shows up with the gun, but there's a safety on it, and I'm going to put something else here. She gets knocked out, and he says, should have taken the safety off. Now, she's unconscious. Remember that. Then, before he can kill her, though, Sydney is gone, and then she's dressed up as Ghostface and attacks them. Stu gets that TV thrown on his face, an old TV, not like now. This thing would just bounce off your head, but like an old school TV that supposedly survived that. Was going to be a killer in the third one, but who knows? And then we have a fight between Billy and Sydney, which ends with Gail shooting Billy and saying these words. I remembered the safety that time, didn't I, you son of a bitch? Or you bastard, or something like that. I'm just like, how did you hear him say that? You were unconscious, laying next to Dewey's body. Randy at one point comes to and then gets attacked again before this. And then the dad pops out. And then we get our line from Randy where he's like, this is the part where the supposed killer comes back for one more jump scare. Bah! Shoots in the head, and she says, not in my movie, but he just did. So yes, in your movie. And then from there we get the scene where Gail was reporting on what happened. So yes, my theory is, well, not my theory, but basically she saw Billy leaving from behind, and because it was Cotton's jacket, she fingered that it was Cotton. But, yeah, and we get that song, we are, we're still children. I like the soundtrack in these movies. Whisper to a scream. I like how all of these have had the little credit things at the end. I hope they do it for the new one. I hope they do, because it's a staple, and they gotta keep doing it, right? I love this movie from the beginning to end. It's something I love to watch over and over again. And it's going to the moon, baby. Perfect score for Scream. And I'm glad I did this as part of my ABC review series. I enjoyed talking about this movie. But yeah, it's a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, what the hell is wrong with you? Go watch this movie. It's fantastic. It reinvigorated horror. And then all the horror movies that came out had to have people's heads in the pictures or something. I don't know. But it was a fantastic film then. Fantastic film now. Still holds up. Even with the 90s stuff, there are some things like, oh, you had a cell phone, so you must be the killer. Everyone has cell phones now, which kind of moot. But, still a fantastic film. So what are your thoughts on Scream? Comments below. And for tea, we're going to visit our friend Denzel Washington. Till then, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one. It's a Scream, baby. I'm going to say I'll be right back, but no Sharon Stone, right? It was fun.